Hey y'all, I'm Joy.
And I'm Joyce.
And
Welcome
welcome
to
to
Things My Mama Never Told Me.
So, when I was young, growing up, my mother and all of the women around me, whether they were my aunts, older cousins, godmothers, or my mother's friends, they were all super women. They worked, they took care of the household, they took care of the children, they took care of the husbands. I mean, they did everything. They had date night, girls' night, holiday gatherings, barbecues. They did it all.
They did every single thing.
Oh my gosh. And they never complained. So my mom, like, she made it look so easy. And she never said how tired she was, like, even out loud. You know what I mean? Here I am complaining all the time. Her hair was always perfectly coiffed, lipstick on, fingernails done, dressed to the nines at all times. Like, what about you? Did you experience that?
So, kind of sort of the same, but my mother did mention hard work. Like, she was quick to mention everybody has to work hard, even today. Like, if I come home and she asks me something, I'm like, Mom, I'm tired. I've been up since 6. So what? Everybody got to get up. Everybody got to work. Hard work is what it is. But what I remember, like some of my fondest memories are, she's tired. She worked a day shift, a night shift. She did hair. She did this. She hustled. She had like 10 jobs. And then she'd close the door. And the door was open and voila. Like hair coiffed, makeup fierce, outfit looking great, and like, let's go, we ready.
She going out.
She got it together. She's going to church. She's going to the next job.
Right.
She's going to the supermarket, but she closed the door and she opened up the door. Ta-da! And it's like, it's not that easy for me though.
Right. Like, even Sunday mornings, my mom would get up, cook, be dressed, or by like 9 a.m. and I'm the one hustling out to church. Like, she getting me out of bed. I don't know how they did it all. So, like, our last episode was who am I versus who I want to be. So tonight we're going to continue that theme, and we have an awesome guest star, a woman who's going to give us a little taste of how to reclaim our identities. This woman wears a lot of hats. She's a mom of 2 children, a 25-year veteran of the advertising industry, executive coach, freelance writer, DEI consultant, travel advisor, and a superwoman to everyone who needs her most. Most of the things I mentioned she did while married, raising children, working a full-time job, and running a whole entire business.
I was not.
Right.
So at 9 years old, I had the pressure. You better not lose this kid.
Right.
But, like, so it's on a string tied around my neck. One day the string broke and all my friends tried to find the key. And then that was the time the kids who were missing were on the milk carton.
And that man with the van.
Also, don't get snatched.
Right.
You get snatched up. Like, I can help being snatched up. So I'm getting off the bus, my little self, and I'm looking around, making sure nobody's trying to follow me in the house. And so it's been stressful because there's been responsibility, and a lot of us, sometimes you have to watch your younger siblings.
Right.
Or
right.
you have to work
right.
after school, and so you can be 30 years old and you've been a superwoman for 20 years already.
I never looked at it like that. Like, you're right.
It's access, right? So sometimes it's access to childcare or whatever. But we have had a very large sense of responsibility, sometimes very, very young.
Wow, Shameka. You the way you put it makes a lot of sense. So knowing that you're doing it all, can you tell us how you reclaim or how to reclaim our identities or how you've reclaimed yours?
Yeah, so it's a lot of intentional work, you know, and we are living, for the most part, I know I'm generalizing, but for the most part, a lot of women are currently living based on what's best for other people. So what do my kids need me to do? What does my significant other need me to do? What does my job need me to do? So it's really about getting clear on what you want from this life. And that's one of the first questions that I always ask my clients. And very rarely do they have the answer, because nobody stopped to think about this. You know, we've been in default mode of like, let's get more, have more, be more. And you really don't stop to kind of think about, I have all the things, but am I happy? Am I really where I truly want to be at this point in life? So it's about getting clear, minus those expectations that others might have of you. And it's an opportunity to sit with yourself and ask some really hard questions, like, who am I? Not necessarily who am I because of where I've been, but intrinsically, who am I and why am I here? So it ends up becoming more of a purpose-driven discovery.
Just a follow-up. You said not necessarily where I have been. What do you mean by that?
So, you know, I grew up with Joy in Far Rockaway, Queens.
Yeah.
It's a hard place. It's not an easy place to grow up, right?
If you from the Rock, throw two in the air. Go ahead.
Listen, do the Rockaway, okay? And so it shaped me. It shaped me. And I carry Far Rock with me everywhere I go.
Right.
And so it's in me and it is a part of me. And as I have grown, I have adopted other things, other ways of being. I've become a chameleon sometimes. You put me in a certain space, I'm this person. You put me somewhere else, I'm that person. But I won't allow who I have been to necessarily rule who I want to be. But I can take part of Far Rockaway with me.
Right.
So wait, I just wanted to repeat that. I won't allow who I have been to dictate who I'm going to be. Is that what you said?
Yes.
That's powerful.
Because I can reshape myself. I can reinvent myself. I can take aspects that I love and do away with those that I don't like. You know, so my being isn't necessarily fixed. I'm always evolving, and that's what I try to help my clients recognize.
You know, that makes me think of the term baggage. Like we come into or go into rather relationships, and relationships being any type of relationship, but we move through life with baggage, and people seem to place a negative connotation on that word, but it's just a matter of growth. You know, you take the experiences that you learn from, you know, from where you came from, and you grow on them. You know, you use them to evolve. And, you know, it's funny having this conversation with you, because we had a conversation, of course, about the Superwoman program before. And in one of the chapters that I had, you know, this theme was there, and I just didn't reconcile the two, like, as I was talking to you. And so even like the last episode, when it was like who I am versus who I want to be, I didn't think about it in these terms. So thank you for bringing that to my attention, to our attention, a way to sit down and actually think about who you want to be. Because who does that, right? Like when you're a little girl, you know, I know me and Shameka used to do it together. We would write out the names that we were gonna name our children, right? We were gonna be married by, I think my age of marriage was 22 or something like that. We were gonna live in this big house with the white picket fence. You didn't want a dog. Of course, I wanted a dog. You know? And that was our identity. So now when you sit here, like, just think about that as a little girl. Like, I think most little girls did that. Like, husband, kids, you know, how is it that was just all we were taught? I'd say for our identities to be.
I think we were programmed.
Society.
Even if you look at, toys, cartoons, it was always the mom. Like, who was the first working mom on TV? I can't even remember. Before the Cosbys, was there another working mom? Like,
working mom?
Yeah, like in the Jetsons. Did she work?
No.
She didn't work.
She didn't work.
Flintstones, she didn't work.
June Cleaver didn't work.
Like,
Alice and The Honeymoon is one of my favorite shows. They didn't have children, but she didn't work.
Yeah, like, so it was like, what were we programmed with, right?
Yeah.
And then it was like always a baby doll, a baby doll, a baby doll.
Right.
And then finally you had the Barbies, and they were fashion, really. They were all models until one day, it was a vet or a doctor. You had different things, but it took a while for even Barbie to get a job, I think. I don't think Barbie had a job in the beginning.
I played with action figures because... I was what was considered a tomboy. So I would play with my Barbies and my action figures because we were going to war. We were, We were going to war.
That explains a lot. Yeah. Now I understand, Shameka. Now I understand. You were going to war?
We were going to war, right, Shameka? Shameka never wanted to go to war. We were going to war, okay? We were superheroes. So I had my action figures too. Yes, I did.
So we had Wonder Woman, who was a superhero.
And she was going to war.
We had a bionic woman. we had a bionic woman. And
but there was no, it's so, like what Shameka is saying is so crazy for me to hear it now at this age, like, but those were still our identities, that, and what do you want to be when you grow up, so hence your career, right? But nothing about yourself.
Nothing. That's very powerful.
It is.
That's very powerful. And then, you guys were just saying something about, Joy, you were talking about baggage.
Yeah.
And baggage always being thought of as negative.
Right.
Shameka, what's your take on that? And baggage and negative
connotation.
It is truly usually negative. It's not something that is usually seen in a positive light. I think we all have it though. And what doesn't happen when we move into new relationships or even new job scenarios is we're carrying all of this. You picking up more baggage from the last thing that you were in, and we're never unpacking. So I'm not, when I enter a relationship, I'm not expecting you to have no bags.
Right.
But I want you to know the contents of your bags. And I need to know the contents of mine. And so we're not just entering into this blindly. It's like we're more mindful and aware of the things that we're carrying and bringing in, because I feel that's a part of growth and evolution at this point. You need to know why you're carrying the things that you're carrying.
Erykah Badu told us this years ago.
Didn't she?
Back a lady, you go miss your bus. I have a question for you, Shameka. So, all right. So we know that we need to reclaim our identities. And I think one of the key points of your program is one of the ways in which to do that is to prioritize yourself. Yes. So now, me, married, 2 kids, 2 dogs, full career, entrepreneur, hundreds of clients, on call all the time, podcast now because I can't just ever sit down. How do I prioritize myself? And let's not forget that I'm adding to this list because I have a bright idea every 5 minutes, right?
Every 2
you do.
minutes.
Yes. And I run with it, right? Because I can't sit still. So how do I prioritize myself? Because when I do these things, this is, in my head, I'm doing this for me. It's because I like to do this, right?
Yeah.
So how do I prioritize myself?
Well, you may not like this, but it's about boundary setting.
Okay.
And sometimes the boundaries have to begin with us.
Okay.
So setting boundaries with yourself, setting boundaries with those you love, those you work with. You know, nobody really likes boundaries, so it's often a very difficult transition. But one of the things to consider is, what are you gaining from all of the things that you are doing?
Wait, before I even go there, Shameka, how do I set a boundary with myself?
So one of the things, so Joy's example, right? You're doing all the things that you love because you love doing them.
Right.
Right? But what are you gaining from all of those things that you're doing? And what is the motivation behind all of those things that you are doing? So it's this notion of truly recentering yourself and making sure you have enough time and energy to put against the things that you choose to value most. And that's the prioritization piece. So, you know, we all got to work, right? We got bills to pay. It would be nice if work somehow integrated into the thing that you love to do. But if it doesn't, then you got the work bucket. Then when you look at all the other things that you're giving your time to, it's important for you to consider, what are you gaining from it? Is there any reciprocity from the output of your energy that's returning back to you? Because if it is just a one way, then that might be a sign to recalibrate, because you should be getting something back from what you're putting out into the world.
But like, so hold on, because I'm taking it. I know I'm taking in that last statement of the reciprocity. Say that part. Like, I'm trying to take in that last statement, right? So I'll give you an example. 2 things that I like to do: talk and travel. Okay? And everybody knows, like, this podcast is about my mom, so it's very cathartic for me. And so far, like, it hasn't been stressful, right? But I don't want it to I don't want it to get stressful. Like, you know, even travel, because you're a travel advisor, right? Because you like to travel. So when you start out to do something that you like to do, oftentimes it does start to become stressful, right? So, like, then do you just stop, I guess is my question, and move on to something else?
So, perfect example is the travel advisor business. So I do have that on the side. I've had it since 2017. And during COVID, so first of all, let me back up. I love to travel, as you know. I love planning travel. Before I did this, I was booking my family plane tickets, and I was researching hotels and all that stuff. I love it, love it, love it. So after I started freelancing, I was like, oh, I can't travel like I used to. I wanted to, you know, still be able to get decent deals and things like that. So I started the agency, and I always did it for family and friends. When COVID came, I was just about to pivot and do it more broadly. And as soon as the world reopened, people started traveling without taking a COVID test first. And I'm like, your first COVID test cannot be outside the United States, because at that point, if you tested positive, you would get stuck. Right. And then it would be on me, the advisor, to help find you a place to stay until you tested negative. And that created too much stress. So I stopped. Right. I held it, and I did not book travel for anybody other than somebody I could shake and be like, did you take your test? I want to see your test. Show me. Right. Because I wasn't trying to introduce undue stress to something that once brought me joy. Right. You know, so I dialed it back. And I was more discerning about who I'm booking travel for, because I didn't want that extra energy of worry coming in because I really did enjoy it, you know?
Right.
So that was one example. It wasn't me stopping fully, but I did dial it back. I didn't take on friends of friends of friends. Like, it stayed very much people who I knew, and who I knew were responsible. Because that was borderline irresponsible. Because people were like, well, I'm going to take this trip. And I'm like, what?
Right. I remember.
It's crazy. So I was like, I'm not doing this. So it is that recalibration. I think that's the word. You know,
Okay.
so when this blows up and it becomes this multi-million-dollar idea, you get to say and redefine how you're involved. What is it? You know, and I don't think we often check in to see, is this still working for me? Because once COVID came around, the business wasn't really working for me because it was stressing me all the way out.
Right. So I'm sorry, you had a question?
No, I was going to say, so checking in with yourself.
Absolutely.
Checking in with yourself.
And the boundaries, you know?
I think we're clear on boundaries, but like, how do you get other people to respect your boundaries? Because people have issues.
Your ignore has to be strong.
Yep.
My ignore is strong. When I close the door, there's not a crack of sunlight. My ignore is strong. My ignore is as friendly as I can be. I can ignore just as wholeheartedly. Because you know what? Sometimes, and I have a friend that says this all the time, you put people, everybody's in a different bucket in your life.
Right.
Everybody's in a different drawer. It's this file cabinet.
Right.
And you got the files that are, eye level that you can reach on a regular basis. That's the clan, that's the crew. You got the files that are on the bottom, the older ones. You haven't run into them in a while. If you see them, you may stop. You got the ones all the way at the top, and you got the ones that are locked. Every now and again, you gotta move somebody out of a drawer, put them in the bottom, close it for a minute.
Right.
And when you feel like it, you can open that drawer back up and let them back out. You know?
Yeah. It's important to retrain people.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second. I think we have a caller. Hold on. Hi, caller. Who's this, please?
Hi, my name is Helen.
Hi, Helen.
Hello. So I have a question. I am a new entrepreneur, and as you may imagine, I have to wear many hats and have to do everything by myself. Do you have any tips on how to not lose myself as I build my business?
Shameka, did you hear that question? So Helen's a new entrepreneur and she wears many hats. She's trying to figure out how not to lose herself while building her business. Do you have any tips?
Great question. Thank you, Helen. You still have to be at the center. I think, as y'all may know, I am that serial entrepreneur. As you said, Joy, have an idea, go out and put it into the world. It's important for you to always remember why you're going into that business. And it will likely take more effort and energy than you had imagined. So being very centered and grounded in the why you're doing it is really, really important. And there's going to be a lot of asks of you. Not necessarily from the people in your life, but perhaps now a whole list of vendors and partners that, depending on the business that you're dealing with on a daily or weekly basis. So it's ever more important to create some time for yourself, to just disconnect, to exist, to just be. Because if you don't, then you risk burnout as well. And even more so in that entrepreneur space because it's very solitary. So unless you're in a space where you have community, where you can vent and talk to people, you're constantly taking this on by yourself. So it's even more important to be grounded and centered.
I often experience that solitary feeling, even though, I have colleagues, like we all kind of do the same thing, but by ourselves.
Yes.
But one of the points in Helen's question led me to my follow-up question for you. So this happens to me all the time, right? So when you prioritize yourself, how do you not feel guilty about it?
I don't know that there's a way to escape the guilt.
Okay.
I've come to accept that there's just going to be a certain level of guilt, whether it's the mom guilt, the friend guilt, But if I'm not okay, then none of it is okay. And
Right.
so I know that I have to pour into my own cup.
Right.
And sometimes those friendships do that. And then sometimes they don't, And so I just need some space.
Right.
And I recognize that I'm better after I've had the space.
Right.
So it's easier for me to get over the guilt because I know that I'm returning more open, more present, more resilient, than I was if I had tried to push through and not taken that time.
But do you explain that to the people in your life at the forefront? So, like, I'm just going to use, my significant other and kids. And the reason I'm using the term significant other is because it, obviously changed over the years until I got married, right? Like, do you sit and explain to them, I'm doing this for me at a certain, before you do it so that they understand? Because they might not understand why you're taking that time. And honestly, that's why I didn't do it a lot, because I felt guilty. Like, when I ran away, but they didn't feel me running away because they were off doing something fun.
Yeah.
For instance, and whether I was with my husband or somebody else at the time, it's like, okay, I'm gonna do my girls trip, you go do your boys trip, or something like that, so that I wouldn't feel guilty about having to leave or just tuning out or turning off until a point where, like, I guess I couldn't sustain faking the funk anymore, and then kind of just got depressed, to be honest. And so when I turned off, I completely turned off. Like, just come home, make sure somebody got food, and went under the covers for a certain period of time, because everything just got to be too much. And I didn't know what to do.
Yeah. The program is designed to get you to create that space before you get there, before you get to that breaking point. Right. So to answer your first question, you can talk to them and tell them, I'm doing this because of this. This is how this is going to look. But if you've always done everything, then they're not going to believe you. Because they're like, oh, she's just saying that, but she'll be at the game, she'll be here, she'll be there. So it's not until you don't show up, until you start actually creating a space, that they realize, oh, this is what she's talking about. This is what it's gonna feel like, what it's gonna look like. So it's almost like you have to do it first, to allow them the opportunity to see everybody survived, even though you weren't at that game.
Right.
And when they came back home, you talked about the game, you talked about sport, and you were better and more replenished because you had a chance to take an hour nap instead,
Right.
So I think you do show up differently after you've had this space to renew. But if they don't believe that you're going to do it because you've never done it before, then they really won't have anything to react to until you actually do.
And that's like setting boundaries with your family and your friends, right?
Yes.
That's right in there with boundary setting. And when they know that you're not going to be there every single time, it looks different. It looks very different. Yeah. And again, that's just me. I've learned to do that. It's you got to learn it. It's not hard. Shameka, we have another call coming in. Hold one second.
Hello, who's this?
Hi, this is Sadie.
Hi, Sadie. How are you tonight?
Good, thank you.
Good. What's your question or comment?
I'm going to go for a comment. I think we talk
trying to be superwoman and trying to, do all the things we want to do with our families. But I think sometimes when we're trying to be and do everything, especially when it comes to our kids, I think there's also needs to be a conversation about what they lose out without when we're doing it for them and they're not doing it for themselves. So sometimes, so I think that there needs to be a conversation to let us be okay not doing it, not just because we need the rest, but also that like for kids, they benefit. Their self-esteem and being able to be more self-sufficient is something that's good for them.
Shameka, you want to respond to that?
I couldn't agree more. As we are moms and aunties and, godmothers, and, kids are watching. They're watching the example and the models that we're setting, and ultimately, we should be setting them up for success as adults. And in this world, as we know, everybody ain't gonna do everything for you.
Right.
There's gonna be a moment where you're gonna have to do it yourself, and so that is a part, I think, of what is important for a child as they're growing, because they have to learn at some point. Otherwise, you're kind of feeding a codependency, and then they'll go and look for that in their future partner. And it's like, no, you should be able to stand on your own. You should be able to do these things without needing somebody else to do it for you. So I think that's important too, that after a certain age, we have to be mindful of how much we're doing for our children. Even though it's out of love, sometimes it's not always helpful, after a certain age.
That's the Mother's Day episode, Shameka.
I'm ahead of myself.
No, I mean, but it's true. It's like, and listen, there's no time like the present. So I'm happy to hear all these things and learn all these tips now. And for whoever's listening, like, I don't want anybody to feel like, oh, I've been doing it wrong all this time. This is room to grow
for everybody,
at this point. Because you can make a change. Like, I don't want to be burned out in my second round. Like a lot of, I'm gonna say, risks I won't take now because I'm thinking about what happened before. You know what I mean? Not that it was bad, right? But just, I don't want to feel like I felt the first time around with raising children as a single parent. So, I'm scared. Like, even having another baby, right? I'm like, I don't want to go through that again. But now I'm sitting here like, okay, if I just try some different things with myself, I might be able to go down that road again. I'm not, y'all, but understand, okay? Because I like to go too much, okay?
You stay in the road.
Stay out in these streets. And I cannot be dragging nobody behind me. Even sometimes Coco and Cash got to stay home, okay?
Okay.
So tell us about the program in and of itself. So how is it that, ladies and men, because it's a lot of men out there who are kind of going through the same thing, but they don't want to share. How can this program help us? Help them.
It's designed to create some space. So in my coaching practice, I recognize that I'm really good at holding space and giving people who don't usually have the opportunity to be introspective and really ask these type of questions of themselves. So the idea was to take individuals and bring them together as a cohort, typically going through similar things, right? Similar phases of life, And the idea is 6 weekly conversations. The third conversation is an individual one-on-one session where it's really executive coaching. It's kind of like, let's check in, see how you're doing in the program. And one of my dear friends who had seen some of what I was posting on LinkedIn said, "Oh, I'm really interested in your program, but 6 weeks, that's a lot." And, she's like a high-powered executive. And I was like, oh, right. I'm asking overcommitted women to commit more time,
Right.
So I'm like, okay, let me put on my advertiser hat and think about this. So what I did was cut it in half. So there are 2 sessions as a group, and that third session is still the one-on-one. We can do it in 2 consecutive weeks, or we can do it in a weekend. So one session Saturday morning, one session Sunday morning, and then do the executive coaching Sunday afternoon into Monday, depending on the size of the group. Okay. Same woman said, if you do this over a weekend at one of those resorts you always go to, I'd be down for that too. And I was like, say less. So retreats are coming. I actually have been researching for the last 4 or 5 years. So retreats are coming where we'll have those 2 sessions in person, and then the rest of the time is chill out, vacation, relax, and we'll do the executive coaching when we get back. And then at that point, they can decide, do they want to continue to the last 3 sessions of the program? Do they want executive coaching, or are they good? But the idea is to meet you where you are so that you can get to where you want to be. And, a lot of women that I talk to, we have had a lot of success, but we're not necessarily where we want to be.
Right.
And I'm like, there's just too much that we're capable of for us to not be where we want to be.
Right. So I'm going to say the name again because this is obviously not a podcast about plugging businesses, but I thought this was just so important because it just fit right in. And Shameka and I have been talking about this like a few months ago, and I actually watched a workshop that she did, and I was just like, where have you been my whole life?
Around the corner. Across the street.
Right. But she, if you know our story, like she always kind of swoops in and saves me by any and all means. But this is called the Superwoman Recovery Program. Now, let me say that, she didn't have to ask me twice, but once she started talking about the resorts, I was in. Okay, because I don't need any excuse to get on the plane or to do a staycation here. But I think one of the things that stood out about the program, and Shameka, if you don't mind me saying this, a few years ago, you started to kind of talk about this through, I think it was just like, gathering and going out. It was called Moms Who Need a Minute.
Yes.
Right? So it wasn't, let me show you how. It was just like, we all need a break. So let's just find different places to go. Just grab a minute, hang out, have a drink, go see a show. Right? So this has kind of been brewing in her head for years. But so when she first told me about it, I was like, that's amazing. Because one of the things is we don't share. Like, we'll vent to one another, but we don't share. So I really did appreciate the concept of the program. Like, getting in a space together and actually talking it out. And then you giving us tips, and then the check-in with the one-on-one. And I've seen you be successful. I guess it's like the same thing when you do your executive coaching in the professional world, to make it applicable here in our personal lives so that we can have better, professional and family lives. I think that's amazing. can you tell everyone how to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So the website is superwomanrecoveryprogram.com.
Okay.
Currently have a special going on with that starter pack, which is the 3 sessions. So feel free to log on, get more information there. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn is my full name, Shameka M. Brown. So the M for Michelle, very important. Feel free to reach out to me there. And then my email address that's associated with the program currently is shameka@thebrownscribe.com. But there's also a contact form on the website as well. I just feel like so many people could use this.
Yes.
And I'm trying to get to them. I'm trying to get to them because, everybody's like, oh, I'm so busy. And I'm like, I know, but you'll be so much better off after. So it's just trying to figure out the right shape and form that can take, depending on how much time, they're willing to give to themselves. But everybody deserves it. And I think, when your kids are little or you're early in your career and you're just going, and you think that it's going to net where you want it to, it doesn't always end up that way, or you burn out, you have a health crisis, a loss, or you lose the job, right, that you've been sacrificing all that stuff for. Then we end up in a deficit.
Right.
And who's going to help us in the deficit when nobody's going to help us when we were on top?
Right.
So we have to start to figure out ways to replenish and help ourselves.
Right. And that's the point. Prioritizing yourself and taking that time, right? So if you can take, the 1 hour a week, right, to do this and steal away for a weekend, a long weekend, a short weekend, it's worth your while, what's funny? Like, when COVID came, it sat everybody down.
Yes.
Remember we were doing meditation during COVID because we were like, yeah, we're all in because we had the time, right?
Yes.
Like, 1 hour, we could stay on here and meditate for 2 hours. And one of the things that I've noticed recently, right, because technically COVID is over, is certain people have been making posts saying, they want to go back to that period of time. Because everything has slowed down. And some people get upset, oh, how dare you say that? No, they're not talking about the deaths and the illnesses or anything like that, right? They're talking about the fact that everything kind of slowed down and they got a minute to breathe. And you know how many businesses were created during that time period? People got to do what they wanted to do. People went back to school. People had more babies. Folks got married. It might not have been the wedding they wanted to, but they got married. They fell in love. Like, people just had the time to do what they wanted to do, to prioritize themselves.
Yes.
Right? And now that it's technically over, things are right back to normal and we're all like completely nuts again. That's where I found myself. That's where I found myself. So, sorry.
No. I was gonna say, Shameka, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for all of your tips. Thank you for the Superwoman Recovery Program and the possible retreat to follow. Because, like Joy said, no one needs an excuse to get a plane ticket.
Me and Louise get on the
Have
plane.
a passport, will travel. But, just to recap, some of the most important things you said to me were, talking about boundaries and how to create them. Like, that's one of the most important things I got out of that. So thank you. And even creating a boundary with myself. Joy, what is one of the most important things you think she said today? And then we're going to end with Shameka telling us what she thinks her most important thing is of this session today.
There was so many. I just had a whole word. And you know, I talk to this woman every day, y'all. But you actually, it was the question I asked you about feeling guilty, because I had the question in my mind, but I've never asked you before. So the way that you answered it tonight is the most important thing that stood out to me. And it's all just so simple. And Shameka and I had this discussion. I'm not gonna say what it was in reference to, but there was some place that the both of us had to be, and I said, Shameka, I can't go there because on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I do this. Joyce knows what I'm talking about. Shameka knows what I'm talking about. And she sent me a text, and the way she put the text was like, what's more important, this or your mental, what'd you say, your health and mental well-being?
Yeah, health and wellness.
Your health and wellness. And I was like, you know, my health and wellness. But I was literally asking you the question without asking you, because I was like, Shameka, why do I have, like, you know, but why do I have to explain to other people what I'm doing, you know? So, and like I say, even though we talk all the time, like, thank you for answering that for me tonight. You don't.
You don't.
So, is there anything that you would like to tell our guests before we close out this evening?
You know what? I'm just beyond grateful for the opportunity to sit with you this evening and, you know, just talk about what was born out of my personal experience that I think other women might benefit from, and for just sharing your platform with me so that I can get the word out about what I'm trying to do and the space that I'm trying to hold for those who may not even realize they need it. So I just truly appreciate you all, and, you know that I'm always here to support and help out in any way I can, because, you know, I love a great idea. And this podcast is that. So thank you both for coming and inviting me. And then for any woman out there who is saying, "Ooh, that sounds interesting, but I don't know, I don't have enough time," know that you are exactly who I'm looking for, and, you know, I need you to make time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on. I'll see you tomorrow, sis.
All right. Have a good night.
Good night.
That was good.
Oh my goodness.
That was good.
I can't wait to go on this wellness retreat.
It's not about the trip.
Yes, it is.
It's not about the trip bunch.
Yes, it is. You didn't see the list yet. So, again, thank you to Shameka M. Brown. She is on LinkedIn. She is on Facebook. The Superwoman Recovery Program. Yes. On both Joyce's page and my page, you will see links to the program. On the Things My Mama Never Told Me page, you will see a link to the website and how to get in touch with her. And I hope to see some of you all in the program and away on one of these fabulous trips. When you see me there, don't say we didn't tell you. But thank you all for joining us tonight. And thank you again, Shameka.
And thank you to Helen and Sadie who called in today. Thank you so much for your questions. Our next show is going to be the Mother's Day episode.
So I don't know how much I told you about the Mother's Day episode, but it will feature Farrak's finest. Yes, the girls are in the house, okay? And we are going to be specifically talking about how our mothers didn't necessarily tell us how to be single mothers. Okay. That's a whole lot. So I thank Joyce for coming and tripping out with me and my girls. We all grew up in Far Rockaway together. Shout out to The Rock. It's gonna be a crazy episode. What happens on the podcast gonna stay on the podcast. I'm warning y'all now. But it's gonna be a great episode. Love you all. Thank you for joining us again tonight on another episode of Things My Mama Never Told Me.
Bye.
Peace.
Good time.